I'm Skip Jacobson.
And I'm Beth Wood. Welcome to tonight's PM Magazine. Right now we're at Co-op Tapes and Records in Davenport.
Beth, you remember where you were the night the Beatles first came on the Ed Sullivan Show?
Exactly, Skip. I think everybody remembers exactly where they were. I was at my grandmother's house. We were watching it on a black and white TV, and I was about 6 years old.
I was eating chicken with my parents and my brothers.
You know, I think everybody remembers the first time the Beatles showed up on American television.
Well, tonight in our first story, we're going to meet some dedicated Beatle fans who are turning the current wave of Beatlemania into big business. And we'll get a rare glimpse of Beatle collections that are shooting up in value.
From here,
I don't think a day goes by that I don't hear some Beatles music. And the memories they represent are worth more than ever today, too, because Beatlemania is a big business. Records, buttons, even bubblegum cards are going for incredible prices. And some modern-day Beatlemaniacs have collections worth a fortune. PM Magazine's Bill Casale tracked down some Florida collectors who go for the Beatles in a big way. After this story, you might want to check your collection, too, because it might be worth a lot of money.
Back in the 60s, a group called the Beatles created quite a stir. It all started in this country with the release of I Want to Hold Your Hand, which immediately went to the top of the record charts. Then they appeared on the Ed Sullivan Show before millions of screaming, hysterical fans. And Beatlemania had begun. Worldwide, the Beatles sold over 200 million records and marketed thousands of different Beatle items. Today, Beatlemania is still going strong.
Can't buy me love, love.
What were once cheap novelty items have now become fantastically priced collectibles. And fans who collected Beatle memorabilia over the years have developed collections worth thousands of dollars. Jack Stevens, program director for an oldies cable radio station in Daytona Beach, Florida, has been a serious Beatle collector for over 7 years. Like most collectors, he started as a fan. To him, there was something special about the Beatles' music.
It was just incredible. There was a magic, there was a chemistry, there was a, whatever you want to call it, that when all four of them got together as a collective one and put all their time and talent into an album, it paid off.
So Jack started collecting Beatle albums, 45s, and memorabilia. But where do you find them? Beatle records that sold in the millions should be easy enough to locate. But what about the more obscure recordings?
A friend of mine and I, when we get the urge to go vinyl hunting, we generally just hop in a car and tour 4 states. A good place to go is, you know, hit all these little second-hand shops and these used record shops. And if you have the patience and you don't mind getting your hands dirty, you flip through them and you find, for your effort, you always find just 1, maybe 2 pieces that are salvageable.
One such second-hand record dealer is Dave Bushy of Rock and Roll Heaven in Orlando, Florida, who started out collecting military items. And one day he went to the flea market and bought some old records. 50,000 records later, he decided to open his own shop.
With the Beatles, they were the most prolific rock group of the 60s. They sold more records than anybody else. The items that are extremely rare, that there were never, there were very limited presses to begin with, errors, promotional material. They did a lot of cover changes and created some astonishingly rare LPs, which you're dealing with maybe 500 of them available. Those are the things that are really going to go crazy.
One of the rarest Beatle records is the so-called butcher cover for the album Yesterday and Today. On the cover of the original release were the Beatles wearing butcher coats smeared with blood, and bodies of plastic babies and meat thrown over their shoulders.
I'm not sure exactly who motivated that thing, but it was pressed. A few of them got out. It's extremely rare, but the paste-overs themselves are worth a considerable amount of money. They took the original cover and pasted the other cover over it. This looks exactly like the cover that anybody would have got in the store. The only difference between this and the other ones is that underneath this cover is the butcher cover.
That particular album is now worth $300 to $400. That's not an exorbitant amount when you consider how many collectors are willing to pay the price. The lengths to which some collectors will go is astonishing. It's almost become an obsession.
A lot of people suffer from a disease that has been coming on strong in the last 10 years, and it's called vinylitis. And that's the record collector's disease.
Tyler Travis Bolden has been collecting the Beatles since 1964, and he definitely has a case of vinylitis. Tyler, manager of Carousel Records in Haines City, Florida, has collected over 400 Beatle records from around the world. And his collection includes some very rare albums from Russia, Poland, Israel, Venezuela, and a misspelled Sgt. Pepper's cover from China.
I started out with records in general. And then after so many years, I realized that there wasn't too much more I needed. So I started to expand with records all over the world. And I started to write to people from Germany and France and England and Sweden.
Tyler estimates the worth of his collection at over $30,000, but says he paid nowhere near that. He says in most cases you have to know what you're looking for and how much it's worth. Because the Beatles sold literally thousands of specialty items and released their music with so many different album designs, it's almost impossible for anyone to have a complete Beatle collection. There's always something that can be added. For John Clemens, it was the Beatle dolls.
Back in 1964, when they first came over, they cost $1.50. You know, by the time I even heard about them, it was impossible to get all 4 of them. Yeah, I've never been able to get them. And then just lately, I just got lucky. I just happened to get some. I paid a pretty good amount for them. But now they're probably worth $200, $250, but I didn't pay that much for them. I just got lucky.
When the Beatles finally broke up in 1970, the dream was over. John, Paul, George, and Ringo went their separate ways. And over the years, there'd been a number of rumors about a reunion, but none materialized. There was still hope, though, hope that they would once again create that certain mystique in their music.
I read the news today, oh boy.
On December 8, 1980, John Lennon was taken from us. And for the generation that grew up in the 60s, his passing was like a death in the family. Because John Lennon and the Beatles represented a youth, an idealism, a dream for the future. A lot of what was the Beatles is myth now. They were very talented musicians, but more than that, they were a social and cultural phenomenon. What they thought and said and wore affected the 60s, from LSD to the Maharishi, from I Want to Hold Your Hand to Let It Be, from Paul is Dead to I'm the Walrus. But the future won't remember how they affected a generation. The future will only remember their music. That will live on. Beatlemania will live forever.
Joe Chanto, the manager of Co-op Tapes and Records, has one of the most extensive Beatle collections in the Midwest. And he tells me that it's not for sale. My collection is a little bit more limited, but it's not for sale either. We'll be back in a moment with the PM Magazine departments. Joe, can I hear this next?